In this edition of Generations, Judy Jenkins from seniorcenterct.org talks about senior care in nursing homes under COVID-19. Why are residents of these homes being restricted from receiving visitors and going to doctor's appointments? And despite repeated requests to the Connecticut Department of Public Health for answers to questions about our seniors, we hear their limited reply. Hello, I'm Brian Scott Smith, and welcome to Generations, a podcast for people of your generation. COVID-19 has been around for several months now, and all of us have had to either quarantine at some point, use social distancing and masks, and basically alter our way of life because of the virus. For seniors in nursing and assisted living facilities, those restrictions have hit them particularly hard, to the point that many older citizens have become virtual prisoners where they now live. So joining me, as always, is Judy Jenkins from seniorcenterct.org. Judy, great to hear from you.
It's wonderful talking to you as always, Brian.
So we've got a very serious subject that we're going to be talking about in this episode of Generations. It's the current state of nursing homes during the COVID-19 pandemic. You've got a very particular viewpoint on this, but we've got lots of questions that we're going to be throwing back and forth on this. Why are you so concerned about the state of nursing homes during the pandemic here in Connecticut?
For me, it's the way that we're treating a certain segment of our population. They're at the end of life cycle, and they have become so isolated that for me, it's like inhumane. And I want to start off, and I want to say right out front that I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not blaming individuals. I want to raise awareness to how we're treating a segment of our population.
I understand that we've got about 215 nursing homes, and that's just pure nursing home. Obviously, there's other care facilities in the state, but we're talking about nursing homes here. And the COVID-19 visitation rules and whatever were set partially by, of course, the CDC, who have set a lot of rules and regulations and protocols for many organizations, obviously in the US during the COVID-19 pandemic, but also the local Connecticut Department of Public Health. So tell us a little bit about, what happens, what is allowed, what isn't allowed, and, let's get that discussion going, because obviously this is the crux of the entire thing. It's how basically the vulnerable part of society, our seniors, are being treated overall, and whether or not, families, friends, etc., have access and find how they're being treated acceptable.
I think, we can start off by saying that, we all pretty much understand COVID, the coronavirus, and that it is much harsher to the older population. The death rate there is higher. But then when you look at being in a nursing home, you have limited freedom just because you're there, because you have some disabilities, you have things that have happened to your body, and you're not able to be at home. So you start off, you go into the nursing home, and it's very limiting as far as, personal freedom, visitation, and all of that, because everybody's going to travel to see you, and you're not able to move about freely. Then we have this crisis happens, the rules are set, and then they're interpreted by the corporation that runs the nursing home. So there is no outside visitors. There is only perhaps window visits. They have started in the last few weeks doing outdoor visits. So, you can make an appointment, you can go to the facility, you can visit with your parent, your aunt, your loved one for 15 minutes in some places. So, what can happen in a 15-minute visit when you're sitting 6 feet apart and you're both wearing masks? And then if you're the resident in the nursing home, you're restricted to your room. You're not to leave your room at all. And then when recreation has the time and they get to your wing or your part of the building, you might play doorway bingo. You might have some other activities that go on. But for the most part, you're in that room you are in that room 24/7 with very little interaction with the outside world. You might be able to do Zoom if you're fortunate enough to be able to, or you can make an appointment with, recreation in your facility to come and do Zoom. You are able to do phone calls, but again, you're so isolated, you're not leaving that room. I can't imagine 4 months in one room, never leaving it, and not knowing when this is going to end. Is it going to end in August? Is it going to end in October? Are we going to go into 2021 and we have this whole segment of our population that cannot leave their room? It's just appalling to me. I just don't understand how we can be allowing this.
I think what's also quite upsetting about this, obviously, for not only the residents in the nursing homes having sort of like their mobility and accessibility heavily restricted, is, of course, as you say, the visits by family or friends, very, very limited time. But it's that personal touch. I mean, a lot of people, whether their parents are in nursing home facilities or still at home, we all want to go and give each other a hug and have that human touch. And of course, that's missing here as well.
And can you imagine going months where the only person that touches you is perhaps the nurse taking your temperature, or, that kind of interaction? And we're humans, we crave interaction, we crave socialization, we crave touch. And none of this is happening and is not going to happen, And then if we look at the overall physical well-being of any segment of the population, never mind the frailest of the frail, not being able to get up and walk. They can only walk in their room. They're not doing any exercise. They're not free to move about. And then what happens to the mental decline? And then are they aging years in just these few months? And I do think they are.
And then what about the testing? Because, of course, we keep hearing about, people being tested for COVID. What do you know about, the testing in nursing homes?
Connecticut Public Radio, July 10th, their article, and it's an extensive article, but it has testing in nursing homes we all know it's costly. We all know it's time consuming. And Governor Lamont has said that testing is not necessary if the facility is COVID free for 2 weeks. If you have COVID in the facility, they are testing weekly. If you go for 2 weeks, then they're not testing. And even that doesn't make any sense to me.
Exactly, because, I mean, we hear about, the president's attitude towards testing, but that aside, we're also hearing that we may be having, another surge that by no means is this over. So I agree with you. It does seem rather unusual and strange to say, well, it's not been there for 2 weeks, so we're not going to bother testing now.
And the other part of the whole testing, the whole part of the nursing homes, the vendors and the workers are the people that are going in and out of the facility. So if COVID is coming into or going out of the facility, it would be fair to assume it's the vendors or the workers who are bringing it. And so then if you haven't had any COVID for 2 weeks, you're not going to test it all. How do you know then what's going on? And I'm not all for the testing anyways. So if we're not testing, then why can't we have visitors? Why can't these people see their loved ones? Can you imagine you've had a great-grandchild that's been born and you might never, ever see that baby?
Absolutely. And of course, what's again crazy about this is, and we saw this happen in the various jails and prisons here in Connecticut, that testing wasn't done. And then all of a sudden there's an explosion of COVID-19. And, this is almost like a similar situation. In fact, probably, and as crazy as this sounds, prisoners have probably got more sort of like access and mobility than many of the residents in nursing homes.
They do. And I did some recent research on the prisons. And one example is in nursing homes, you're very restricted on showers. I know of a case where somebody has not had a shower, believe it or not, for 3 months. But prisoners have showers every day. Prisoners are not restricted to their cells. They're able to, go about the prison in most cases, not all cases, and you have to be COVID free and whatever. But no, being a prisoner, you have more rights than if you're a nursing home resident. And again, isn't that appalling? Isn't it inhumane to be doing that?
Oh, absolutely. Because as you've pointed out, from the very beginning, I mean, nursing homes potentially are the final places where, these residents will spend the remainder of their time. One would hope that they are being treated with respect, are having as best a time in the latter part of their life as possible. And yes, okay, COVID-19 has affected all of us, but it does seem that this part of the population, which has continually been pointed out as being the vulnerable part of, the community, is basically almost being swept under the carpet and being forgotten because, we're more interested in opening up the shops or, going to outside events. It is quite disgraceful, really, at the end of the day, that they're getting, an incredibly raw deal on, the fact that, they are in these facilities.
And the other point, too, is we all need to understand that the workers, everybody that goes into those facilities are amazing people who are doing amazing jobs, really do care, about the residents. They do the best that they can. I'm not finding fault with any of them. It's the rules, CDC and DPH that are making, and they're not thinking about the impact this is having on a segment of our population. We can all sit in our ivory tower and we can all make rules and we can all pass judgment. But until you've walked in their shoes and you've lived in that room and not left it for 4 months, you really don't understand the impact of the rules you're making.
Absolutely. I attempted to reach out before we were due to record this episode of Generations to the Connecticut Department of Public Health. And actually, while I'm talking to you, I've just literally now received a response from them. So I'm going to read it to you. They've said that, we're extremely busy handling multiple requests. The governor conducts press updates daily, and it tells me where I can go and watch them as a member of the press. So as much of our information on nursing homes is on the state website, which I've clicked on, and it's basically just a very general page. It's not specific for nursing homes. And then it says this specific nursing home data page might be helpful. But basically, again, I've just clicked on that while we've been talking, and all it is just a list of nursing homes around the state of Connecticut and what their figures are. None of this information, of course, is helpful at all. It wasn't what the initial inquiry was to them. The inquiry was, what more, can you do for these vulnerable members of society? So it's actually, very disappointing that the Department of Public Health, yes, they may well be busy, but it is part of their job to answer questions. And all they've done is just responded an email with a few links. And basically, they consider that to be their job done.
Which really ties back to what I was just saying about sitting there and making rules. We're not talking about data here. We're not talking about statistics. We're not talking about the number of people in nursing homes who have died. We're talking about those that are living, and we want them to have a quality of life. They are adults. Some of these people are incredible, the lives that they have lived, but yet they're not allowed to make decisions. Most nursing homes have wings. So you're going to have the people who want to stay in their rooms, and I respect that. You can stay in your room. You're going to have people that want to have some interaction with others. Put them in one wing so they can have some interaction. You have others that are like, I just want to live my life. I want to do what I want to do. Put them in another wing. Let them decide what they want to do and let them live their lives.
Absolutely. I mean, it's incredible, isn't it, that we get to this point in our lives and then have the rights to choose literally stripped away from us.
And to live in this country and not have freedom, not be able to make those decisions, I just don't understand it. If I was to do this in my house with, let's say, a 13-year-old and say, you have to stay in this room, I'm just going to give you food and water and clean clothes, and you can't leave this room for months, I think if the police found out, I think I'd probably get arrested for doing that. Somehow we can make those rules and do it with people who are at the end of their life.
Well, Judy, thanks as always for bringing so many important, stories, to the front line, as it were. We will keep an eye on this. I know that you will be keeping an eye on it as well. And as the COVID-19 situation continues to evolve, we can only hope that perhaps people start to hear these calls for change and to listen to what it is that, all parts of society need, and in particular, the very special requirements that our seniors not only require, but they deserve.
They do deserve.
Judy Jenkins from seniorcenterct.org. As always, it's great having you on the podcast.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Since recording this interview with Judy Jenkins, we reached out again several times to the Connecticut Department of Public Health with specific questions we wanted answered, and despite their promises to come back with those answers, they never did. What we can tell you is that AARP organization in Connecticut and Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy are talking about this crisis in our nursing homes. And if you have a loved one in a nursing home or assisted living facility and feel they are not being treated as well as they should be, then contact your local state representative or senator and ask them to add their voice to this issue, as those it affects are having their voices ignored. That's all from this edition of Generations. Don't forget to visit seniorcenterct.org to find out what's going on in your neck of the woods. And if you want to send us a topic to talk about or want to be our guest on the podcast, drop us a line by visiting the seniorcenterct.org website. Go to the bottom of the homepage and click the How to Advertise with Us link to get in touch. From myself, Brian Scott Smith, thanks for listening. Stay safe, and we'll catch you next time.